I convinced my daughter fairies were real, now she won't speak to me. To get Grace pumped about the big move, I told her our new home was inhabited by fairies. See, we were relocating to an island in the north of Scotland, and she wasn't exactly thrilled. But Dublin only served as a painful reminder of her mother. I sorely needed the change of scenery. The promise of fairies made her face light up. Historically, those creatures played a huge part in the islanders' belief system, so I assumed the tourist board leaned into this for publicity, like the Loch Ness Monster. The Fae Folk Community Advisor sounded like a made-up title. After we settled in, Grace spent her days fairy spotting, which entailed wandering the coast and exploring various enchanted caves. Seeing her thrive meant I didn't even mind the locals, who all seemed a little off. It felt like, wherever we went, they'd constantly smile at us. It seemed odd, given the permanent cold shoulder we'd received since arriving. Then, as my daughter and I sat down to dinner one evening, there came a knock at the door. It was Grace. Another Grace, identical to the first in all ways except hair, which stuck out in every direction, almost feral. While I stood there, mystified, Grace asked this girl who she was, why they looked and sounded exactly alike. She claimed her name was Grace, said she moved here from Ireland, and that her mommy died in a car crash. Quickly I summoned the community leader who pointed out markings carved into the back of feral Grace's knee, hot and inflamed. It resembled a zigzag inside two triangles. The leader pulled me aside and explained my daughter would die if we didn't destroy her changeling doppelganger. Then she summoned the islanders into the woods for a cleansing ritual which, as parent to the imitee, required me to douse the oil and toss the lantern. After the ceremony, Grace finally settled in at school and made some friends. I tried desperately to forget what happened. However, just as Dublin reminded me of my wife, the island now made me picture my daughter, begging her daddy to untie her while the flames surged and swelled. And so, I accepted a job in London. On our final day, the leader popped over to say goodbye. With that sly smile the locals all seemed to share, she handed me a gift and said not to open it until we reached England. I made it as far as the ferry. It was a book, about Fae folk and their spells. Halfway through, a page had been marked with a post-it note. I flicked open to a chapter depicting zigzags inside two triangles like the one on the changeling's leg, and then read the accompanying text. In order to assume human form, a changeling will carve runes into its victim flesh, thereby allowing it to imitate their physical appearance. And as I glanced up from the book, my daughter smiled at me. That awful, familiar, islander smile.